I need to hit that. Got it.
Jessie is a friend.
All right, that's all I can take of that song, guys. There's a reason why I played that song for my longtime high school and childhood buddy, Blake Hall, who is my guest tonight on Conversations with Cougars. Blake, how are you doing tonight prior to me playing that song? You still okay?
I'm doing good, Bernard. I don't think I've heard that since back in '83 or whenever you told me.
Oh, I can tell you every time we played that, my friend. Guys, here's one of the cool things about Blake. Blake's 2 years older than me. We lived in the same neighborhood, played childhood baseball together. There's a really cool, if you want to go see a really cool picture, go look in the Facebook group. I don't know if it's puka shells that Blake's wearing, but he was damn sure coolest guy on our team back in 1976. I'm not trying to embarrass him, but I had him, Blake, I had you up here for years. I wanted to be Blake Hall. Now,
Because of my chain.
That's right. That's right. Well, that and that cool 280ZX that he used to pick me up in his senior year. That was the year that Rick Springfield's Jessie's Girl was a big song. Now, I'd be in the kitchen sitting with my brothers and mom eating some breakfast. Blake never had to honk the horn. We heard him 4 houses down the street blaring that song. We never spoke going to school. Now, what you don't know,
over and over.
What you don't know is for the next 30 years, I had people sending me song snippets. Oh, I'm at the Rick Springfield concert in Panama City. This is for you. I'm like, okay, thank you. So I'm not saying Blake doing that song for me, but let's just, I'm not a big fan of it anymore.
Me either. I don't think I've heard it in 35, 40 years.
Awesome. Awesome. Guys, I got Blake Hall, 84 graduate of Northview, played multiple sports. He was a wide receiver. He was a pitcher, an outfielder. What you may not know is he threw the first no-hitter in Northview history as a 10th grader. Awesome. How are you doing tonight, bud? I'm just shot out of a cannon because I'm just so excited that we're here talking tonight.
I'm doing fantastic. I was so glad to hear from you a while back. It made my day.
That's awesome. We've had a good week just sharing some pictures back and forth, just reliving some good old days of some awesome sports and good times. But before we jump back even further, Blake, share with a little bit about where do you live? Tell us a little bit about your family and what you do in this world. Uh-oh, I think one of us froze. We'll be back. That's okay, Blake. You with me now? I think we just got an internet connection issue, but we'll come back. I'm sure Blake will be there in just a second. I don't know if it's me or Blake at this time. Jennifer, if you can hear me, just go check on Blake. He may be frozen. I think it's the internet connection. Well, guys, let me tell you a little bit about Blake until he comes back, and I know he'll be back with us in just a second. Blake, I said, was an 84 graduate. He played multiple sports. He played outfield and pitcher for Coach Bubba Johnson. He was a wide receiver for Jerry Andrews. He went to the University of Alabama, and just we had some awesome teams back in the day. Let me tell you who's here with us right now. We got Jason Mullins, Kevin Jackson, Catherine White Lambert, Jennifer Hall, Patrick Fitch, guys, a bunch of guys rolling in. Bud Young is with us. Guys, Blake has got a internet. He just popped off. I think he's going to come back on in just a second to join us. But just give him just about 30 seconds to be back with us. I'm sure here he comes back in. And we can't control the internet. It's no big deal. Blake, you back with us, bud?
Hey.
All right, now you're back with us. My question to you was, tell us about your family in Atlanta. What do you do these days and all that good stuff? And then we'll jump back into the background.
Okay. I've been in Atlanta. When I got out of Alabama, I moved a couple places, North Carolina, Savannah, then back to Atlanta about 27 years ago, all in healthcare and medical sales. And I've been here now for 27 years. Have 3 kids, 25, 22, and 20, 2 girls and a boy. The oldest are girls. 2 of them are out of college. And then I got a sophomore at Alabama. And
so the caboose is at Alabama. Did he pledge a fraternity like you?
Well, Richard's a little different. He wanted to wait and see, and he's waiting and see. My daughter was a Kappa there. She just graduated, actually lives in Birmingham. And then my oldest played college tennis. She initially signed with Wisconsin, believe it or not. She, Madison, and when she visited in May and June was June and July was nice to visit.
Mhm.
And then when indoor Big Ten tennis in February got her, and and then her coach transferred, and then she stayed a year, and she transferred and finished her last 3 years of tennis at UT Chattanooga, and then
a little closer to home than you guys.
Oh, yeah. Well, she wanted to come. She wanted to come
Yeah.
back south, and she knew the coach there, so she did that. And now she lives here, not far away, and it's fantastic.
Oh, that's great. Like when you were dealing with the internet, I went roll call, but let me tell you who's here. Some names you're going to know, some names you're not, because they're just younger than us. We got Jason Mullins, who played in the early 90s, Catherine White Lambert, who you certainly know. We got all SEC. Oh, Kevin Jackson, number 7, is with us tonight. Bud Young is with us. Chase Fletcher, Debbie Miller. Man, they're all coming out for you tonight, Blake.
And Chase, Chase's dad, Chip, worked with me for years and years and years at the same company before he retired. And so,
oh, here's a name. I don't know if you're going to remember him. Coach Randy Hicks. Does that ring a bell?
love that guy. Fantastic.
Yeah, one of these days. Not Miss C, it's your birthday. I'm not mentioning you tonight. Happy birthday, Shirley. We hope you're doing well. And Blake, what you don't know is that Shirley is the memory of not only Northview Sports, but of Northview, the school. So if you and I can't come up with a name or can't come up with some fact, Shirley, within 10 seconds, will have it for us. But happy birthday, Shirley. Hope you're doing well.
Well, and I forgot, I'm talking about my kids and my wife, Jennifer. I probably should mention her too,
I wasn't going to bring it up, but I'm glad you did.
27 years now. And, she's from Atlanta. She did go to Alabama. That's where we met. And, but she was happy to end up being here.
Jennifer, I don't know if you saw Blake's face when he said 27. He said that definitively. It was not with a question mark. He knows it's year 27, and he's very proud of that. And that's just awesome. All right, Blake, let's back up. Let's back up to growing up Ward 4, Dothan. Wow. That is where most of us who ended up at Northview, that's where we got all of our just youth sports, whether it was baseball, football, going to the Westgate, to the Water World, wherever it was. What was most fun for you about hanging out at Ward 4 and just doing whatever it is you did up there?
Well, the fact that we lived 500 yards from
right.
So, we could cut through the woods and get up there and be, like you said, on the baseball field, the football field, the gym, the tennis courts, or whatever, just the big whole place, Water World, and just doing that every day growing up, on those fields, which were fantastic back in their day.
It really was such a great, it was a safe space. And
right.
That was, and not to date us as being old dudes, but frankly, we're getting there. But you could do that. You could go hang out at the neighborhood park and just goof
Absolutely.
off, be a kid. Now, when was it in the Hall household? When were you supposed to be?
Can you hear me, Bernard?
I can hear you, but let's keep talking if you can still hear me. You still there with me, Blake? That's okay, guys. He'll come back. It's just weak internet. It's not indicative of our guest, that's for sure. It may be because Jason Mullins is in here throwing all these. No, I'm kidding, Jason. Mike Henry, how you doing, bud? Blake, here's my question. It's okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you great now.
How did you know growing up in the Hall household when you were supposed to be inside that house at the end of a given day of playing or just being out doing goofy stuff?
How did I know when I needed to be home?
Mm-hmm.
When Jerry Hall was out looking for me. And when I was told to be home by dark, and it was, 8:30, 9 o'clock. And
right.
Riding my bike as fast as I could down that hill from Westgate down and back up.
Well, I was going to say, I know that I want to say, didn't Chad Tyson live near you? Who were some of your running around buddies back in the day?
Next door. He actually lived right next door. He got him. Jed Downs lived on one side, me, and then Chad on the other. Forrest Suber was in the neighborhood. A lot of those guys, right, were in the area right there. So, and you obviously, Chase Northcutt. There were a lot of guys that lived right on the street there that we.
Oh, you couldn't go 3 houses without finding an athlete. Somebody was playing a sport of some sort. That's for sure.
David Ballinger. I mean, you could find a good basketball games anywhere you wanted to go, up and down the street.
Now, as a kid, Blake, before Northview opened up in '78, everybody was a Dothan Tiger. I don't know if you had family members, but if you lived in Dothan for generations or for decades, you had somebody who went there. My dad went there, played ball, graduated. My aunt and uncle, a bunch of cousins. But then Northview opens up in '78. At what point, if you remember this, did you realize I'm not going to Dothan High? I'm zoned for the new school. And was that exciting? Because I want to say, weren't you at Girard before that?
I was. And I was very excited. I mean, my dad actually went to Columbia High School. My mom went to Headland. And so, obviously in the area.
Yeah.
But yeah, when Northview was being built, I remember it. And I said, all right, that'll be our school. And, couldn't have been better.
Yeah. Just having such a brand new school. And I think you came in maybe 2 years into the school of being maybe an 81 or so.
81. So what was it? 3 years old, I guess.
Yeah. So you would have been, were you a freshman the year they won the state title in 81?
No, I was a sophomore.
So, okay. That's right.
I was on that. Yeah.
I was on that team.
I was on that team. I went to Birmingham and I was on that team. So I was 81, 82, 83 of football, and then obviously graduated in spring '84.
Well, one of the ironic things going back to that 81 season, after doing so many of these shows and studying the history of the program, that season is by far the best season of Northview football. So dominant on defense, so many outstanding players. I realized my 85 team was up and down Cinderella, but we were not the dominant team. But here's the ironic thing, Blake. If you remember, that state title game may have been the worst played game by Northview all season.
I mean, all season. I mean, what's 7-0? I mean, we scored a touchdown and that was it. And and a sloppy game. We couldn't do anything, but got out of there with a victory.
Well, you may or may not know this, and some of the coaches have either admitted on the show or we've talked that Carver actually watched y'all's practice from up in the upstairs, and they really weren't supposed to. That's neither here nor there, but I don't know if that contributed to the way the team played. But
because I remember that Wednesday before we took 2 Greyhound buses up to Birmingham. And we helped because we all had to get adjusted to turf cleats.
Right. That's right. I know we're kind of skipping around, but what had you been to Legion Field to maybe see a Bama game before?
I had been to an Auburn, Alabama game a couple of times, and but I had never stepped on the field.
But how different was that turf and 80,000 or 70,000, whatever, however big it was? I mean, wasn't that cool compared to the 10,000 seat stadiums you guys have been playing in?
And and so many people from Dothan traveled up there for that game. It was amazing. Our side was almost as full as Carver, who was in Birmingham. And, but one of the things I remember was, catching a pass in practice or falling down on that concrete is what I would call it, at Legion Field. And it was a lot different than the turf we had always played on.
Yeah, you might as well be playing out in the parking lot because it was not even an inch of, I don't even know if there's rubber underneath it at that point, but you're right. It just would eat your skin up if you skidded across it. Blake, I want to welcome Mike Henry, one of my teammates. He's in here with us tonight, doing a great job coaching. Blake, let's back up. And I know I'm all over the place, but you're going out to Northview as a 9th grader. It's a brand new school virtually. You got all your buddies who you've been playing ball with and grown up with, maybe a lot of guys from Girard. I don't know if other schools at that time fed into Northview, but what was that like already being part of a group, the football program? Granted, you were a baby Cougar at the time, but at least you had a group of friends as you entered that huge school.
Well, and most of us, I went to Girard for, I think until 6, but then our 7th and 8th grade year was at Honeysuckle.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Oh, wow.
And most of, the guys in my class, I can think of, were over there as well. That 7th and 8th grade, and we had played middle school football, and we didn't really have baseball. That was done through obviously the city and all that you and I did. So, but yeah, that's where most of us came from, and it was an experience to change, but we all took it together and really
Mhm.
enjoyed it.
Oh, Blake, my ninth grade homeroom teacher, Mary Van Landingham, has just joined us. Miss Van Landingham, I hope you're doing well. I'd love to get you on this program. Thank you for joining us.
That's great.
That's awesome. Blake, you got them coming out for all kind of love for you tonight.
You know what? I mean, the memories are so good. You know, you don't go a day or two without thinking of something that happened back in those 4 years at Northview or the years before, and all the people you met. And
There's two factors as to why I know you're getting some love tonight. One, because you were just that kind of guy back in the day. Everybody was friends with you or wanted to be friends with you. But two, you're one of the rare individuals who is not on social media. So nobody knows about Blake Hall. They want to learn what's been going on in his world.
Well, between my wife and kids, I think there's so much social media, I can't, you know,
you can't escape it all.
I can't escape it. And so I figured, you know, if I can't be reached by email or text, or then
that's right. Somebody will find you some way.
But I'm certainly glad that you found me, because
Yeah,
this has been a pleasure. And
let's talk about growing up in Dothan. You know, in the 70s and 80s, it's not like the teens and 20s as it is now. Life was much simpler because we didn't have social media, cell phones. We didn't have all this in your face mentality, but that's the way our kids have grown up. They don't know the childhood that we grew up, and they're tired of hearing about it, but they're not on this show. This is me and you talking.
right.
Why was it special to you, if it was, about growing up in Dothan, about that time period of your life?
You know, I tell people growing up in Dothan was fantastic. I mean, a lot of people think Dothan's this tiny little small town but it really wasn't. I mean, we had what, at that time, well, later, two big 4A high schools, and we had quite a few people there, and you were close to the beach, you were close to, you know, a lot of different things. And I just, you know, really enjoyed it. I mean, you could go anywhere you wanted and feel safe, and, you know, riding your bike, even on the outsides of the circle, going around somewhere, you felt safe, and it was a great place to grow up. I really, really enjoyed it.
You know, I tell folks, my grandparents lived on North Orange,
Mhm.
and I lived, as you know, near Houston Academy. I could ride my bike, didn't matter the time of the day, crossing the circle. I think I started doing that at about age 13, not without a helmet. You know, it's a couple of miles. We didn't think anything of it.
No,
It was that's just the way life was in Dothan. And I feel so fortunate and blessed. I have those memories of being able to go to my grandparents and spend the night and seeing friends. I knew where they lived along the way. And maybe that's just life in Dothan, in that type of a town.
and I did the same thing. I remember going over, you know, by herd. I'd drive all the way over, you know, or ride my bike across the circle and down there, seeing friends over by herd elementary, playing football out in that grass or whatever, and going over there. But you were, you know, I don't think you'd do that now.
No, and I don't think we let our children do that now.
Right.
Either.
Exactly.
Here's one thing we used to do. We used to go out to Olympia Spa because they had the big parking lot out behind the building, and we'd play wiffle ball until 1 o'clock in the morning. There'd be 10 to 12 of us up there, Blake. You can't do that anymore.
No.
Now,
You can ride your bike to Olympia Spa, but you could get out there.
that's right. That's exactly right. Like, a lot of times I don't talk much about specific games, but I do have a few that I think will jog your memory of your junior and senior year. Football. If you remember, we ended up playing Greenville in this Lions Club. I'm going to call it a bowl game. It was a charity game. We played Greenville I think it was in Dothan. Do you remember us playing that game at the end of the year?
My junior year. Yes,
Yeah,
I do.
yeah.
I do. 82. Yeah, I do remember that.
I just remember thinking, man, that's a cool thing. We're playing it was a charity game, but we were playing in a bowl game, just like the guys on Saturdays got to play in that.
Right.
But the reason why I bring that up, not just that game, and I love to ask this question, what was special to you or memorable to you about Friday nights playing at Rip Hughes Stadium?
You know, I thought having our field being Rip Hughes and not on our campus was really actually pretty neat. We played in a great stadium, a big stadium that, saw some college teams come play in it, and
Mhm.
The Fridays going to the pep rally, to the movies,
Mhm.
going back, getting your stuff, getting on the bus, going to Rip Hughes Stadium was special. I mean, I thought it was fantastic, really. And those memories are hard to beat. So it was a good time to enjoy.
It really is such a memorable time of our young lives because they're pretty innocent times. We don't have a mortgage. We don't have children to take care of. Your job was to make good grades and to play the best you could at your sport that you so loved with your buddies.
Right.
And whether you had Bruce Bolden or Greg Hillier or any of the Armstrongs, I guess it was Andy at the time,
Andy
Andy
McLeod.
Summerford. I mean, I could go on and on, but you guys, because y'all were a couple years ahead of us, 1 or 2 years ahead of us, for my class, for my group, you guys really, whether you knew it or not, kind of set the bar high for us because we saw how close you guys were and how much you enjoyed playing sports together as buddies.
Right. And we had done it so many years, like you did growing up. So we had known each other forever. So it was special.
It was, but poor Jeff Coleman. I got to go to Prattville. I guess it was your senior year at Prattville, and I know you remember this play.
I do.
You know what I'm talking about? Was it did Leo throw it? It was a little pop pass to the tight end. Have you ever seen a tight end completely 360 head over heels?
I remember I remember that game. It was a tough game. I mean, and Leo and myself at wide receiver got hit a lot, and it was a very physical game. And I remember that about Jeff going tumbling there.
Guys, I don't know if video exists, but when I say he went head over heels, he literally did a 360 and it caught him somewhere it split his jaw, or his lip or his chin. But I want to say that then future Robert E. Lee coach Spence McCracken may have been the Prattville coach at that time. Does that ring a bell?
Yes, I do believe McCracken was the guy at that time, maybe his first or second year there that time.
Well, we got him back a couple of years later when he was at Lee, so it all evened out. But one of your former teammates, Shane Cobb's son, Cam, has joined us.
Oh, great.
And Coach Parrish, I'm sorry. When I say Coach Parrish, you think Harry Wayne, but not all of Northview thinks that. Josh Parrish, one of his sons, who later coached, and here the bookend coach, our Coach Parrish, Harry Wayne was the first coach. Coach Josh Parrish was the last Northview coach. Well, welcome, Josh. Good to see you, bud.
Wow.
Yeah, you remember Josh is about a third grader. You don't know him as an adult.
Coming around, running out there on the fields with us, trying to give us the balls. I remember.
Now, Blake, we clearly there was a little bit of time in between the end of football season and before baseball officially started. Did you ever play basketball for Northview, or did you just kind of rest and get ready for baseball season as soon as football ended?
I didn't. Not at Northview. I played in some of the city leagues just to keep in shape and stuff like that. And it was one of the worst mistakes during spring training I had ever made. I remember getting out of class we left and at 2:00 and went to the football field for spring training, sixth period. And we were out there for 2 hours, and then I had to leave and go to our baseball practice, which was from 5 to 7. And I had to be at Westgate Park for a city all-star basketball practice from 8 to 10. And so it was 3 sports in one night. And I can remember coming home and saying, I'm ready for one of these to end, spring training or basketball.
Too much of a good thing can be too much of a good thing.
Right. Exactly.
One of the things that I was always a little sad about is that they had not developed our baseball field on campus enough for us to be able to play. We hardly practiced there. We had that swamp area back there, which, by the way, I never got thrown in. I'm just proud of that. But we had hitting. I think there may have been a couple of
hitting cage. There's a little batting cage down there.
But then we had to hoof it over to Northcutt for really everything else.
Yep.
Now later, well after you and I graduated, they did develop it, and thanks to some of the beneficiaries, they put some money in there. I know that Gabe Gross was one of them. They actually developed it. So now I don't know if you've seen the campus in a while, but there is a softball complex where we used to practice as ninth graders in that bowl.
Right.
And now there's a baseball field. Well, I mean, it has been for years now, but they actually
Right.
put
Well,
it
I've
on
driven by there.
campus.
Yeah. I've driven by there, seen it, quite a few times. Yeah. A lot different than you and I heading to Pittman Field or Northcutt. Yeah. I mean, up at Westgate.
That's
So
right. That's right. Well, and guys, I'm with Blake Hall, an 84 graduate. Blake played multiple sports. He played wide receiver for Coach Jerry Andrews, who was, I guess, the OC or the backfield
see at
coach.
that time.
And he also played outfield and pitcher for Coach Bubba Johnson. And I keep switching around, but I want to get to the baseball program I'm playing for Bubba. And if you guys know, you see me every week on here, baseball was actually my first love and still is. And in Blake's senior year, my sophomore year, we had a very special team. We had, I think, almost a dozen seniors led by Blake, Leo Butler, Barry Hightower. I could go on. We've had Richard Shaughnessy on the show a few months ago. So many just fantastic baseball players. What did that season to you, when you reflect back, what did that season mean to you? And did you, at the beginning of the season, Blake, have any idea we were going to be that good?
Well, I knew we were going to be good because some of us, played on that varsity team as sophomores, and then as and our junior year was okay. It was a lot of rebuilding, but I knew us coming back as the senior, with Leo and Mike and Greg and Wes and everyone and Richard, was going to be good because we all had experience, and it was my favorite year of baseball ever. I mean, we were good. I mean, we were really good. And you go back and look at some of those games, we were killing people. Yeah. And you know what, we finished third in the state. I feel like we were the best team in the state, from what I saw. And but the memories from that team, the outfielders, me and Greg and Leo were out there and had a blast. And as you were there with us, so it was a great team. And Bubba, Coach Johnson, was just fantastic.
He was a fun coach to play for.
He was
and I'm not going to bore the listeners. Maybe Blake and I'll talk about it. I can name the starting lineup, the batting order, and who all the backups were. But here's a fun fact. Back in the day, in the 80s, Northview not only had a smoking section, but they also had a section where you could park your motorcycle. And that was right outside the cafeteria, if you remember this. And Eric Myers, one of the backup catchers behind Wes Whitfield, had some tattoos, would smoke like a chimney, but he was a badass because he rode a motorcycle. And he offered me a ride one day, and I was scared to ride with him. Nicest dude if he was your teammate, but he was awesome. He was
a good one, that be behind your back, and in any of those situations. So
yeah, that's exactly.
It was good, but that was a great year. I mean,
it was a fun year. We were 26-5 going into the final semifinals against Fairhope. We won the first game. We're 27-5. We lose the next two. I break my wrist, but anyway, that was the end of our season. But it was a fantastic year. Barry Hightower ended up getting drafted, I think, in the 4th round by the Mets. Right. Played for about 4 or 5 years. He's now a local coach. Wes Whitfield is a local coach to the Wiregrass area. But those are, you can't replace those memories.
No,
you can't. And guys, I posted a couple of pictures of Blake and me talking on the on-deck circle. And I'm sure I'm getting some sage advice about what to look for. I'm sure it was. But those were just fun, innocent times. Now, what do you remember about Bubba driving the bus and spitball? About how we all got along so well on the bus.
On the bus. He was just up there trying to pay attention to the road and keep us in line back there, as spitballs are flying back and forth and water bottles, whatever. And, he would try to keep us in line, but didn't work very well.
Yeah, no, it was, and all the seniors sat in the way back. The younger guys were toward the front. And by the time we get to whatever our destination, coming home, like at Northview, we had to clean it all out because Bubba, he wasn't going to do that. And he shouldn't have. It was so disgusting. But, what do you expect from a bunch of knucklehead baseball players? Let's see, we got some more folks coming in. Like we got David Mitchell. Thank you, David, for coming by. And, some other folks have rolled off. I can't see who they are. But if y'all have any comments or things, say again.
I said David Mitchell. Good.
Yeah.
Good defensive lineman there.
Blake, at any point in time, or no, not, let me scratch that. At what point in time during your high school, either baseball or football years, did you start thinking about, hey, I may be able to play on the next level when I get to college? When did that start taking some shape?
In probably my junior year of baseball, I would think, certainly in my senior year. And at that point, I mean, probably baseball more my junior year. That's when I thought that.
Your senior year, you had that shin injury that was just such a freak but serious injury that put you out for a little while. But did that impede on you starting up your senior year of baseball, or were you good to go during that off season?
I was good to go. I mean, because that happened, and I guess what would that next last game have been? November. So it healed up pretty good by January. So I was really good to go. But it was a kind of a freak injury, that happened in that next to last football game in my senior year.
I'm not going to say it was number 16 for Dothan High, Doug Mims, but it kind of rhymes with that name and number. He didn't do it on purpose. He's actually been on the show. Every once in a while, I'll have a Tiger, just a little bit different perspective. To Dennis Tillman's been on, and I'm trying to get a couple others, maybe Kim Buckhold at some point.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
He and I had our battles growing up.
That's where I was getting ready to go. Jeff Lees and Ken Buckhold, some fantastic athletes.
Ken had one of the nastiest left-handed curveballs that you ever seen coming at you. And, it looked like Randy Johnson. He went out there so wide with it. And so we had some good battles.
And I don't know of a stronger arm from center field than Jeff back in the day from Dothan High.
True.
You did not want to run on him. But I want to talk about that, Blake. And I apologize for kind of skipping around, but I want to talk about sports rivalries growing up. It was us on one side of town. It was them on the other side of the town. And we competed in every, whatever the sports were, through the different wards, through the city park system.
Right.
Now, later on, some of those guys became your teammates at Northview.
Sure did.
But a good chunk of those guys you competed against, like LaDon McDaniel, competed. I'm buddies with him today. Did not like him one bit back in the day because he was my sports rival.
Right. Yeah.
So what was that like? I mean, for you, I know my experiences, but what was it like for you, and who were some of those guys?
Well, I mean, we talked about one already, Kim Buckhold, went forever. And then all of a sudden, when we're 17 years old, we're in the state all-star tournament up in Graysville, Alabama, and Birmingham as teammates, and have been for the last, month, and loving him as a teammate, and people like that. Ken, I'm trying to think of some of the others there at Dothan High, that Jeff Lee. Mike Gilroy, these guys I remember, growing up with, but then we were not friends on the field. And then all of a sudden, maybe in certain situations, you were like on an all-star team together in the next year in a different sport or something.
Did you ever, after you left North, you graduated, you ended up at Alabama, did you ever see any of those guys on campus? And you're like, hey.
Yeah, I run into them a few times, and then you're like, yeah, we had our time. So
yeah, I was going to say, he's not that bad of a dude. He just was wearing the wrong colors.
That's right. That's right.
Well, let's go back to the thought process of wanting to maybe play baseball or football, whatever it was, on the next level. Did you ever have conversations with Bubba or Coach Parrish or any of the coaches about your desire to play on the next level?
I did, and for sure in baseball. And then I ended up signing with Wallace out there. And speaking of another strange injury, that was I guess 1984, fall of 84, on the fall team at Wallace. I tore my ankle up. And so then as spring came around, it still wasn't healed. I had surgery on it. I still wasn't healed for the spring. And I sat out that semester of the spring because I wasn't able to play. And then that summer I went on to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and had thoughts of trying to play there, but but didn't. And, my ankle, it took a while to get over that. So
And was Coach Frichter the coach at the time with Wallace?
it's,
And we all know that there was such a big history and a lot of success over many years. And later Mackie Sasser took over that program. But at the time you went to Wallace, were there other Northview players on his roster, or were you one of the first?
actually, Greg Hillier went
Mm-hmm.
with me then. He came on there, Mackey had been there. There were some Montgomery guys and some Ozark guys on that team. And we had quite a few of us had played for Sammy or Coach Frichter on the American Legion team
Mm-hmm.
that prior year. And so we knew him pretty well, very well,
Yeah.
actually. And then growing up, I helped Coach Frichter with baseball clinics in like Geneva and Elba.
I was going to say, we all went to those summer camps that they used to hold. Rob Arnold and I played on his Legion team one year. So I think for maybe a short while during that time, and Mike Henry, if you're still with us, you may be able to help us here, that there became I wouldn't say a pipeline, but there were one or two Northview guys every so often who would end up out there. I don't know how close Bubba and Coach Frichter were, but for every athlete who plays on any level, junior high, high school, all the way up, we come to the realization our days as an organized athlete really have to come to an end at some point. If we're not going pro, and even once you go pro,
It's gonna end. Yeah.
time catches up. Do you have any of those? I know you got hurt the next to last game your senior year of football, but you were able to come back and play more high school sports. And I know it's a bad taste in your mouth because it was that Fairhope Fairhope series, but do you remember any of those thoughts? High school is coming to an end. Maybe my sports career may be winding up as well.
Well, and I did for football, and I'm going to be honest with you, Bernard. I didn't love football practice. I mean, I did.
I'm sorry, who did? Maybe two of you guys out there.
I didn't. I like the part of special teams being out there at 3 o'clock, but then when everyone else came out at 4 o'clock and
That's right.
real practice started,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to continue to do that. But baseball, I felt like, this is something I'll try to continue on and play.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I said, being out those 6 months with my ankle and never really coming back, it just kind of, like you said, then you start the real realization that, it's not going to happen.
No, it's at that point, maybe a little depression, maybe a little realization, maybe you're mentally closing one chapter of your life and you're moving on to the next phase. And I know you're excited because you're now on the big campus and a lot of new things, new people, new experiences. But at some point, all of us have to face those realities. But what has not gone away, I guarantee it, and I know you and I hadn't talked in decades, is the athletic fire, the competition in you. So that's my question. What have you done now later in life to keep that athletic fire, that competition going? Do you play golf?
I play a lot of golf. I play a lot of golf. And, as my wife will attest, I probably too much golf. And, and that's where the fire is golf seems to be harder, though, even playing all these years than football and baseball. So,
well, you're competing really against the course or against yourself about what you played, how you did the last time you played, isn't it?
Exactly. You want to play like you did when you were 18 years old, and you can't do anything like that anymore.
No, back then it was all just raw power, strength, but now you got to use the noggin. That's where the wisdom comes.
You got to play small ball.
That's right. That's so great. I want to talk about, we had such special coaches back then. Not every player got along with every coach. Some butted heads. I can still remember Coach Parrish grabbing my face mask and wiping that smirk off your face. I don't remember what I was doing, but it wasn't the right thing at the time. What did those coaches, which coaches made impact on you? And what did they mean to you back then?
Oh, I mean, as you mentioned, Coach Hicks, I mean, I loved his desire, and Coach Andrews was, Coach Andrews would yell at me a lot, and then he'd, laugh with me 5 minutes later. And same with Coach Parrish and Coach Johnson. And I'll tell you what, you remember Coach Cleveland, Rick Cleveland?
Of course.
He would get us out there, punt returners, and me and Woo Woo, and he'd get us out there in special teams with the jugs machine, a baseball jugs machine, and he'd point it up in the air, and put a football in it, and it'd go 500 feet in the air, and he'd expect us to catch it, and he's like, well, you need to catch these, and you can catch everything, and that thing is breaking 30 feet left to right, when it's coming down. And
Ray Guy punts is what you're trying to catch, and no high school kid can do that.
No. And we used to have fun. We used to have fun with that, but then he'd put that down and he could kick himself, and he'd kick some good punts down there for us. So
I was fortunate. We had Coach Cleveland on the show a while back, and that man's memory is unbelievable. He named 50 players. It was fun to have Coach Cleveland on. He's doing well in the Mobile area.
That's good to hear.
As we grow up during those real impressionable high school years, and those coaches are molding young boys into men getting ready to go off to college, we learn all kind of life lessons. Sports just does that for us.
Sure.
And I know when your children watch this later, they're going to roll their eyes, but we've never heard it from you. Meaning, what lessons from playing sports really have translated into life later on, or maybe ones you've shared with your children?
I'm going to say work ethic. I mean, you go 4 years and you don't want to do something, but you have to do it. They make you do it, and it gets instilled in your brain, in your mind to, hey, if you want to succeed, you got to put in the work. Mm-hmm. And that really, I get a lot from that. And I think going in that workout room every day, us them making us do that. I mean, when you go work out now, it's because you were instilled on how to work out then, and you knew you had to do it. And it helps a lot.
It so does. Not only that, but when you go off to college, whether you're playing a sport or you're just a regular student or you get into some other activities, you've got to be organized. Because if you're not organized in your day and doing your priorities in the way you should, you're not going to be there very long.
Right.
And that was one of the things that team sports taught me as well.
Absolutely. Teach you how to act around a group of people, how to respect other people, your teammates, your peers, whatever. And no doubt.
Again, going back to the good old days, how often do they do, and they don't anymore, 3-a-day practices in August like we went through?
You'll probably remember this. I think it may have been before my junior year that the baseball summer was, you were in shape, but you weren't in football shape. And I went straight from baseball on, say, July 30th to 2-a-days or 3-a-days with, as a wide receiver out there on the field on August 1 or August 2nd. And I remember Coach Parrish making the wide receivers or backs and do a 5:30 mile, 5-minute 30.
Oh, I remember those
before practice. And if you missed it,
mm-hmm.
which and the linemen, they had 6 or whatever they did,
right.
And we had, I'm just kidding, guys. And that we had to do it. And if you didn't make it, you had to do it again after practice. Mm-hmm. And if you didn't make it then, you came back the next day before practice and you were so sore, you couldn't make it then. So it took you 3 or 4 days to get that 5.5-minute mile in and things like that. But it just showed you were, I thought I was in shape, and I came back from baseball, but not football.
Jake, I have 3 witnesses who saw me my senior year. I did a 5:28. And now granted, that was a few pounds ago.
On the first try?
I wouldn't say that, but I got it.
Yeah.
But that to me is one of my 3 greatest sports accomplishments athletically. Oh, speaking of athletes, here's a name from the past. Lorenzo Thomas is in the
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. How about that?
Hey, love, good to see you, bud. It's been a long time.
Hey, and we're thinking about things like that, Bernard, this just popped in my head. I can remember walking out to to when like I said, the early with the special teams and all that. And we walked out one day and Coach Andrews had like 6 bricks lined up and 6 eggs. And and I'm sitting there as we're walking out and we're going, what the hell is it? What is this? And and he's like, all right, come here, receivers. We stand 5 yards apart. And y'all start with the brick. Y'all toss it underhand to each other back and forth. And you listen, you're not going to catch a brick with stiff hands. You're going to have soft hands. And then after 5 minutes, you put the brick down and we'd pick up the egg. And you'd start at 5 yards and you'd back up to 10 until the egg broke, And so some of these things that I still think today, I thought, but that'll make you, have soft hands. And it'll really teach you to, to look something in instead of sitting there and not watching a brick come into your hand.
If anything, Coach Andrews was creative. And what I mean by that is, whether Florida State was doing it or Alabama or one of the local closer colleges, the coaches were going to find some innovative ways to keep us getting trained.
Sure.
Lowe says to tell you hello, and he remembers those bricks for sure. Absolutely. Now, I'm going to ask you both. Blake, do you remember Around the Horn?
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely.
Tell us your version of Around the Horn.
I wasn't crazy about it. And I tried to avoid it. Like Oklahoma's, they were oh, hey Murphy, didn't like them. And I don't know what we called this, Bernard, but you remember when Coach Barris got mad at us on the field and all 85 of us had to line up on the track and start jogging, and they'd blow the whistle and the guy at the end had to sprint to the front and hold the pace. Yes. And in cleats on the track, and that was one of the worst things. Awful,
because it would take another minute for him to get up there.
Right.
And it's not like it was, you wanted it to be not one of the fast guys, because if they're going to set the pace, that's horrible. You're lapping some of the guys.
And you had to pass them all and get in front of them and then hold the pace as they keep coming back. It was, things like that. It's funny how you remember things like that and they stick in your brain for 40 years.
Blake, one of the other things that I remember, and I've had Carlisle Morris and a couple other track guys, how about those guys running down 431 wearing combat boots? You remember those guys?
Yeah, while we were practicing, yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Bud Young says the worst would be when when it rained, Coach Johnson would make them do monkey rolls. Bud, more power to you, buddy. I don't think I did monkey rolls, but maybe I don't know. I wasn't there that day.
I've got a great picture of me and Bud Young walking off the baseball field in one inning, and he's right in front and I'm right behind him. And when he was, let's see, Bud would have been, that was his senior year. I'd have been a sophomore. It was the no-hitter game, and the picture of it in the paper that Bud's in the right there.
Oh, wow, man, I'd love to see that. Guys, I'm talking with Blake Hall. Blake was an 84 graduate of Northview, played many sports growing up, and we're just running through some fun times back in the day. Blake, we got a few more minutes, and I appreciate your time so far. I want to talk about school spirit. I don't think I've had a single person on here who would disagree that in that early years of the school, particularly the first 10 years, brand new school, 2 state titles in the first 7 years, how can you have more or better school spirit than we had in those years? What was your experience about school spirit?
If there was a school with more, I'd like to see it. Our booster club was fantastic. You went to those booster lunches, it was packed. The coaches would take a few players that day or that Thursday before, whatever. It was packed with lunch people. It was, the pep rallies were just extraordinary. And, how you could have more, I'd like to see it, because back, like you said, in those 80s, it was hard to beat.
It was almost like movie scripts, but frankly, it's better than you'd see in any movie, that's for sure.
And we were treated so well. We went to a movie, we had a steak dinner, we had, you were treated very well. So.
How about what the cheer squad did, putting on all those skits, putting all the stuff in our lockers?
Yeah, you'd come out of practice and your lockers just decorated with all that kind of stuff. Yeah, they made it really enjoyable.
Mhm. And I've talked to many teachers, including Miss Hicks, Miss Hooks, and many others about, for the teachers, it was just enjoyable to be there, not just with the new school, but just how much everybody rallied around. And frankly, it was football back in the day.
Sure.
And it's easy to root for a winning team when you're winning, a couple state titles back then.
I mean, sure. You think of some of the teams that we played. We brought in the big ones from all around the South. I mean, to play. I mean, we were considered in a short period of time a pretty powerful team.
Yeah, beating the likes of Murphy High School. They had, I think, Pat Washington, who went on to Auburn. I mean, I could list a whole bunch of these guys who had just some monster careers.
Sure, absolutely. And and those Montgomery teams. I mean, JD and Lanier, and they were all strong.
Yeah, Lanier, I went back and looked at one point. Lanier was kind of our Achilles heel. We could only beat them about every third time. For some reason, back then, Lanier just had our number for something, and they weren't particularly strong teams. They just happened to catch us at the right time. Now, Blake, I want to transition out of high school. You've graduated. You're done with Wallace. You're now in Tuscaloosa. And I know that in the fraternity life and just in your social world and academic world, there's people from our school, from Northview. There's people from the city of Dothan. But here's my question is, when Northview would be brought up, what kind of, did it bring you some pride to be from Dothan, to be from Northview, be a graduate of Northview?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Now, and granted, in Tuscaloosa, I was around a lot of guys that were from Northview. You're talking Jeff Coleman and Lee McMillan and Bruce Bolden and David Vollinger. And, these are all guys, and David Dennis and Woody Griffin. These were all guys that were there. So there were a lot of us around at that time. But absolutely, it was, Dothan was, it was popular up there. So.
Well, it wasn't, and I wasn't there, so tell me if I'm wrong or off base, that a couple of the fraternities would really kind of target Northview or Dothan guys. So there would be a concentrated number of you guys in particular fraternities, and maybe even parties too. I don't know how that worked. Absolutely.
I mean, just like I said, the Sigma News there, we were, we had so many from Dothan, at that period of time, and still do. But yeah, they wanted to concentrate on, and get at least 4 or 5 guys a year there to keep that train going from there.
And I promise I'm going to get you out of here in a minute. But now that you have become a parent, obviously for many years, and had a child to play competitive, top-notch tennis, at what point during her childhood did you decide, I need to turn this over to the professionals to be the coach, and I'm just going to be dad?
Well, Bernard, the fact that it was tennis, it was very early on that I turned her over. So, because I didn't, of course I played, but she took it upon herself. She was a great little soccer player, but she decided at like age 11, she wanted to just do an individual sport. She started with tennis, and she ended up leaving. She was at Pace Academy and left there in the 8th grade and went to tennis academy for her entire entire high school career. Wow. And then she, and then went on, like I said, to Madison up to Wisconsin. And so, so it was early on. I mean, I'd go hit with her when she was young, but then it was a waste of her time to hit with me anytime.
Well, I was getting ready to say, at what point, what age, what grade did Dad's athleticism kind of fall by the wayside?
I think it may have been, her in the 8th or 9th grade, when I tried to race her out on the beach and I pulled my hamstring pretty bad.
Oh no.
That's when I said, all right, I'm done. You can have it. It was like 8th grade. And I said, I'm done. I'll just come watch from now on.
Yeah. You became the weekend warrior. That's for sure. That's for sure.
I think first time I tried to sprint in probably 10, 12 years, actual sprint, and it got me. Yeah. So.
Wow. Well, I'm trying to think of other Northview or growing up in Dothan memories, and I've got 2 last questions for you, and these are the 2 that are going to get you in trouble. But the statute of limitations long expired. I've already checked with all the experts. We all know about the cement pond.
Yep.
Everybody used to go out there. Where were some other places that now you can tell that are probably no longer even there because of development? Where would you guys go that you wanted to get away from the adults and just be, just with the kids?
You mean with the high school kids?
Yeah, just being with your high school kids, drinking some beer, listening to music, whatever it was.
Well, the cement pond was probably the most popular.
Mhm.
Gosh, there was one out there going out towards Headland. I can't even think of the name of it right now. But I remember going.
Would it be the 84 extension?
Yes.
84.
Up 84.
Mhm.
Wait, or I'm sorry, up 431.
Okay.
Right there before the is it the botanical?
Oh, I don't even know what it's called, but Bud says it used to be called the power lines.
With the power lines. There you go. And that's where it was. That's right. Bud's got a good memory.
He does.
That was a place.
He does.
And then of course someone's house when their parents were at the beach or something. That was always popular.
What about riding around Northside Mall? Did you guys ever cruise the mall?
No. Yeah, of course.
I was going to say, I know at least one Tracy Kazai would say that you did.
Of course.
You and Tina were on the show a while back, and I finally got them to admit that was one of their big activities, was cruising Northside Mall.
Nope, that was an activity. Absolutely. I remember it very well.
Well, he was number 89 on the gridiron. He was number 30 on the diamond. Blake Hall, I'm so glad we've had this conversation, my friend. It's been a while.
Hey, I'm so thrilled that you asked me to be on, and these guys that you've mentioned here, fond memories of them, and you as well, and the coaches and the teachers, and it really is a pleasure to chat with you.
Guys, that's why I do these conversations. It's kind of telling our oral history of not just our football program, but our high school and memories of whatever the decades and the years. I've had folks from the first teams. I've had folks from the last teams, and we're not done. There's a lot more folks I want to get on here. But Blake, stick around when I hang up in just a second. Got a couple things to share with you. You guys continue to be safe. I'm always looking for new folks to come on Wednesday nights. So let me hear them, who you are, and we will get you on Conversations with Cougars. Y'all have a good night.
Thanks.